It's time to chat about some nasty stuff. We'll start with the beginning. Over here, the Alsatians running pretty decently. They're up to 47 now with the improvements in the north. Now, this can all be taken away from them. I don't know where they end up after that, but they can take a pretty big hit. The west, not much they can do. They're trying to break out. I see a path, a path running from here to here that looks like it's their best possible that they could maybe actually score at some point. So in order to do that, they have to build the track through here. I actually don't know if this was necessary. They could have just built through here. I don't really care. I mean, they're not going to make a lot of money buying back their own share, but paying out full. All right, now the beast. Yes, I bought another train. With this money, with these two trains, just the two, not that other one. I thought I couldn't possibly get anywhere up in these high numbers. Yeah, 106 a share. Half swallow, 530 bucks in the treasury. Boom, that's enough with the huge amounts I already had from all the bonds that people bought to grab another one of these. Now, I'm going to be adding, not as much money, but close. We're going to be running around 150 a share. We're going to have to pay out half sometimes in order to buy out these bonds. But this is what I really wanted to highlight here is this is kind of the point at which the game kind of gets tiresome for me. Now, this is really cool that he did this and that these humongous runs are being created and that, wow, I mean, really great to be the guys holding 3 shares of this. And now the question is, can this guy outperform his Wests? In which case he should have dumped his Wests because somebody's holding 2. This guy's holding 2 shares and was in fair shape. Anyone else holding a pair? This guy has none. That's going to be a big hit on him. It's not going to drive stock value up, but his stock value can go up as high as he likes. He can pay out half, and his stock value will go up as high as he likes each turn. It's not a 29-base system where the share value goes up proportional to the runs in any sense. Pity that, right? But here's so first of all, this is the period of the game, what I was trying to say. This is the period of the game that I like the least because the runs are becoming bigger and bigger headaches to figure. There's still some tokenage and some track lays and stuff that can modify them. So it's not like I can just say, yeah, duplicate the runs each time. I can find new ways of squeezing out a few more bucks, and it's just such a headache to do that. But then, when you make a move like this, you might be extending the game another set of operating rounds. In fact, probably that swallow is a half swallow was probably a bad idea if it doesn't. If I'm not getting another set of operating rounds out of this, it perhaps may have been a mistake. And I could have figured out all those things completely because it's totally open money. In fact, I can figure out a lot of it anyway. And I just have no interest in doing that. Open money doesn't bug me too much in the early stages of the game. It can help you make decisions about the trains and how your timing is. Hey, can I beat him out on this train? You're not going to remember to the dollar what's going on if you don't write it down. And if you're playing with hidden money, you're not writing it down. Right? Because it ain't hidden anymore if you start writing it down. This game does state that open money is definitely there. So, what I'd do is I'd count the bank, figure out how many runs at these current values we're going to make, figure out the entirety, this is what I feel necessary, of the likely track placements. So I basically play the entire game out for the rest of these operating rounds in my head to try to see if that bank's going to break. Now, you can see that that's just insane. But you can also see that it's going to take me, 40 minutes to figure out what my next play is if I'm the president of this company. Or if I'm the guy holding 3 shares, I can be like, wait, man, you got to think about this. You got to think about that. Because we both have the same interest in the company. Now, they may not listen to me. But if I'm running the company, I'm going to feel obligated to make that calculation playing opposed. And I hate that. And, I can ignore the obligation, and that makes me miserable. Or I can do it and make myself and everyone at the table miserable. And usually it's some sort of compromise. But, that's what you're asking for when you're playing with open money without a time limit on players' turns, is that they will take like an hour for a single placement once in a game in order to see, all right, where do I optimize my move? Whereas what I'd rather do is just say shoot from the hip, And if you don't know what the cash is, how much money there is available in the treasuries and such not, it's harder to judge. Now very few games make the bank a secret amount of money. So, this decision, I feel, is almost fixed there if you don't put a time limit on turns. And somebody's going to spend, if they're like me and not quite as lazy, like if somebody was really devoted to trying to win the game and was willing to do whatever it took to do so, they would spend that hour or whatever to come up with the best estimate of what they're going to do there. Look, it's a 4 or 5 hour game. You're spending 4 or 5 hours. Why not make everybody wait an hour to improve your play, under those circumstances? You can make that argument. It's not something I'd want to do. I wouldn't want to be present at that. I have been present many times in the situation where I'm sitting there figuring that out. And honestly, I don't think open money or otherwise changes it here. This is just the kind of decision that really makes me hate this part of the game. And this is probably the worst one that I've seen, although I've seen it in some of the other games. 1870 tends to cause it a lot. Basically, there's games where you can make one swallow and get a bigger train. And unless you're really familiar with the game, it takes a decent amount of effort to figure that out. So that is something that I can see making me very, very miserable. And it does here. I don't know whether or not I've made a good choice. I won't know until I see whether or not the bank broke. I can get a quick estimate on the bank, but I just have no idea because I don't know how many times I'm going to half pay and whatever. And I could tailor it all to try to keep the bank alive for another turn with this huge amount of money coming out of it. That might be the best move. I don't know. All railways were interesting too. Both big runners. The GC here at 52. That's off this one tiny little. It's only a three hit, but it doubles them, and it can hit the best places there are. Well, I paid to hook this up. This looks like the best I can do down here. Not having to buy any tokens or anything. I've got 2 loans on me, so I had to half swallow, or else I would have impacted my earnings anyway. Took the extra money, threw it into shares. I got to pay them off before the end of the game, and I think it's going to end this operating round. I don't think there's much I can do. Although this could keep throwing $1,000. It's got a limit to how many trains it can hold. Let's see. 2 + 1 for the size. This is as much as I can have on this company. So I'm not allowed to buy another train on there. I'm still not unhappy with what I did. I can run big twice now, and I think I make up the difference. It's got to be close. So yeah, this sucker's running in the 50s without any help, and then the Belgian actually managed to retire their debt with a half payout. They're running at 40 and giving out 20 a share, getting some share value, and it's important to pay off the debt because that was $50 off the share value there. The extra $20 isn't worth it, right? It's $20 share value versus 50. You might be able to make an argument that the money this thing makes might actually cancel out the. I don't know. I don't want to think about it too hard. I just would rather play on instincts as much as I can. So now we got kind of the bottom half of the stock market here, starting with the MIDI, which has some pretty nice setup, pretty nice train on it. Not really, no, it's just an E. E's aren't going to do very well. And its setup isn't terribly nice, but if it has the money, it's going to dot this, and that's going to make some people's lives really unhappy. I don't know if it has the money. I don't know why. Oh, potential for error in the end game troubles me so much. Maybe because I always lose chess in the end game. It's my sloppiness there that really kills me. I'm not a good chess player even at the beginning, but I just don't know. But it really irks me more, the danger of screwing up in the end game, and I'm willing to think a lot harder about the end game than I am elsewhere. Okay, let's take a look at some of the later companies here. I think we dealt with the Belgian and the MIDI and its dot. Oh, this poor pill. Okay, so you can see it's cut down to 27 a share. It was counting on this run that the MIDI cut out. It had the cash to cover it. It just didn't have it in time. And, you know, I think maybe a full swallow by some of these companies to get in here early would have worked. But I was miscalculating the MIDI. They may have been able to do it before, and they actually have a whole bunch of money on hand, which they may use to dot somewhere else. I was counting from back here for whatever reason. They had this chit. This is actually their home that they could count from. And the est. Okay, so what's going on down here is the pill and the est are trying to hook up this kind of line. The est to get down to here, the pill to make its way up into making money up here because it hits an extra town that way. And it's got a train big enough to hit those. The surprise of this all is the Po here, the Paris Orléans. They actually scored pretty well, getting 43. They dumped their last share in order to buy a token here. Now that token's going to wreak havoc on some of the other companies. Who? Probably the Alsace. I think they use this space. Anybody else slip up there? You know, I think the Alsace is the only one that's getting screwed by that. There are no more tokens here. So as long as the Belgian, you know, doesn't cut one of these lines, there's nobody who doesn't belong up there. The only question is the Belgian could, and I think they have a couple bucks, they could build themselves a dot here or here after seeing the Po line. I think this is the important one. That could cut into them a little bit. Is it worth it? Probably not, because the Alsace is probably going to need that track up there. But this actually managed not only to cut things, but more importantly, to open up so that 10H can run Paris up through the riches here. And that put them into the running in terms of the decent size runs. We can see we got the crazy, and it's not done yet. The fairly impressive, pretty decent, and then we just start tailing off into nothing. And I think runs are going to be huge in this game. I wasn't expecting them to score this kind of level, but I think they're going to be a much larger factor than they are in most XX games. I mean, when you see somebody who's going to be making 160 off a run or 150, you're just kind of like, well, what the hell, you know? Obviously, its stock value is not going to be shooting up the way, you know, it's not going to get the gains there, but I also have to worry this guy still has two of these loans on him, so he's going to want to clear them off, because I think it is ending at this in this set of phases. If it doesn't end, I don't know who that benefits, you know. Obviously, it benefits people holding the Nationale. But that's fairly spread out. The Belgia's fairly spread out. Is there a sleeper? This guy is pretty impressive in terms of he's holding 60% and it's in good shape. The Alsace, we're talking 40%. That's a little richer than some of some of the holdings people have on the richer companies. The GC, that could get interesting real fast if this goes, into another operating round, because that's the big money maker, but it's got this huge drag on it, and that's pretty much meaning it produces half the money. It's actually at a good stock value too, so it'll be gaining. You get the higher gain up there in this as you do in many of the games. It's time for some analysis, I think. The Alsace was able to survive that dot fairly well. Took a little bit of hit, but down to 44 a share now. This thing doing poorly enough it can't advance. 16 a share. It's at 165 base. So I'm paying it all out, but not getting any movement off of it. Getting some cash. Trying to break my way through. We'll see. I can improve my run a little bit there and get another space, but that's it there. The big buddy, this die is to indicate an extra 100. I'm at 154 a share. That's going to produce with 10 shares a little over $1,500. So I have to count the bank. Well, I did an estimate count. I'm guessing there's somewhere around 5,500, a little shy of that. I'm accounting for 3,000 with my run, but let's forget about that for a moment, because I could swallow if I wanted. I could pay out half, and that means I'm only accounting for 1,500. So let's see if we're going to break the bank under those circumstances. We have another 500 here, and that's going to happen twice. Assuming, there's $1,000 in loans in here. So that's why the bank's not, depleting as quickly as it might seem. I might consider that probably will get paid off, but we don't know. This is going to be just one more hit for 440, we'll say. These runs might have gone down. Some of them might have gone up, though, too. This gets hit again, as does, geez, I don't know where I am now. All right. See, I hate doing any kind of counting. Let's start over. We're talking 1,500 for us, assuming we pay out partially. 5,200, 520, how about 1,040 for the GC? But we've got some padding in there, I think. 440 for this thing. 860 for that. It's getting eaten up. 800 for that. Oh, the MIDI. That might be going up in value. Let's call it another 800. Okay, now we drop down to the low stuff, 540. Now you can see, I don't think we're going to make it. So if there's the $1,000 taken out, I think we're still going to break the bank. So I'm going to pay out full the 154 a share, which pretty much guarantees we ended here, which makes me happy as a person, because I hate this stage of the game, right? This is just the headache stage. All the real decisions have been made. Certainly by this point. A little earlier, there were still decisions to be made, but they weren't fun decisions. They weren't the things that you kind of look back on and say, yeah, that's why I did well this game. They might be the, oh shit, I screwed that up. Somebody got a dot in when I should have swallowed or whatever, but they're a little too niggly for my taste. All right, so we're going to see some big money falling for the National Railway. I had to I screwed up and had to give everybody, had to take money away from everybody. I couldn't afford to pay out full. I had to pay off bonds, and if I'm paying them off, I might as well buy more back, which leaves me with enough money to pay my bonds next time at least. I don't really have to buy them back next time. Well, it increases my stock value, so I want to buy as many back as I can. I've got 6 of them back. I would even buy my own back, I think. But I'd rather buy someone else's, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't make a difference. They're worth the same at the end of the game. It's just a matter of I do want to make sure I clear out the people who are holding a lot. So far, I've gotten 2 people who are holding 3 bonds each. Those had to go. But as it is, we're looking at what one here. Oh, there's 2 here, so that'll be the next to go. Yeah, so I'm looking at like I think a $40 reduction in my stock value because of those damn bonds, which is pretty hefty. It'll be $20 lower than it is, and it makes the stock look more impressive than it actually is in terms of its values, in terms of what it's producing. Anyway, we're still going to crash. One thing that didn't matter, it doesn't matter whether or not I pay out. I can't buy a train with this corporation. I could buy a train off of it from this guy if he had the money for it, and then buy a bigger train, the TGV, with it. But I can't. I have no real way of getting the money back into the bank. It'll still come out of the bank. It'll just end up in my treasury. So there's nothing I could have done once I made the decision to buy that train that would change the nature of things. So I shouldn't have done all that counting and shit. Should have been thinking about what I needed to be thinking about, which was paying off my bonds. Now we're over to the GC, which is I started the run for it. It's making 52 again. I'm building some track coming out here, trying to eke out a little bit more. I've got like 2 directions I could eke money out of. I could try to hook up to Paris, but I can't go through Dijon. Or I could try to hit this, and it doesn't matter kind of how I get there with this. I think somebody's going to blast through Dijon. I don't think there's an easy way for me to get into here, but here I can do it in one more track lay, assuming that there's Horns of Happiness available. And nobody screws with me. So although I'd love to hit Paris, I'm only getting one more run. I might as well. I want to take the $20 that I can get. And as we finish out the second round, get some end of the period things. The PLN cut off down here. We see the EST cutting down this way. Now the EST had an interesting problem. Not only are they not making a lot of money, but they still had a loan. They managed to retire it, selling a couple of shares over there. The PO is really being a breakout here. This is an unexpected situation. It's running at 46 a share. Just because it got the dot up here, it's able to crank so hard. And that's, nobody bought a share. There's a share kicking around there. The Grand Central you can kind of excuse, but the PO, I don't think anybody could have predicted that it was going to break in here and get this dot the way it did. It broke in this way. Now it's building more track, just backup track, in the event that somebody manages to dot up there, but I don't think there's anybody who can. Could be track lay wastes, but it doesn't really matter. It's not like he has another company, and if anything kind of falls apart, that's okay. All right, well, we're down to what is almost certainly the final run. Look at the bank, and there's still a lot of little bills in it, but that 1500 run is going to take a big chunk out of it, I think, and it'll look a lot sparser at that point. I may count it up once more just to make an estimate. If things look like they're certainly going to break, and I think they will, then I'll probably have everybody throw $1,000 in for a counter or something, just to get some more cash in the bank, so that I don't have to, hand somebody out. Okay, here's $500 in fives. Well, the money looked a little too close to call for me to run things, just clear it out and say, hey, it's done, and run out this last run. So everybody's pretty much running for what they had before so far. It should be pretty easy to calculate, but we did have the GC only paid out half and retired its loan. Big deal there. They were very close, I thought, to having to swallow, but completely. But they had a share they could sell. which was worth a good deal after running. So they were able to retire that loan. And that is, I think, the last of the loans, which means that everybody's kind of got what they want. That extra $500 might be enough to kick this into another set of operating runs, though. It always seems to be my luck here. It's definitely a good thing for the GC to have cleared that loan. They definitely wanted to do it, not just for their victory conditions, but also their company will run a lot better. It's the second highest runner right now out there, up at 60 a share. It's the only other one with a TGV. If other people had thought that we were going to see this extra operator round, the TGV might have been a good buy for them. That's a hard judgment call, though. You know, if you take I'm not sure who has the money. The only person I think is really close is the West, and they don't really have much room for it, although they've opened things up. They swung down to here, making a little bit more money, and you know, that would add another what would we say? Well, they have a hard time because they don't hit 3 cities anywhere. I guess they could run down this way and make it to here with the electric, with the TGV or whatever, which would be pretty good. 180, actually they can do better than that. If this gets upgraded into a little whoop-de-whoop that lets you get in here, they would be able to do 150, and 120 is 270, 54 more a share in addition. So they'd be a big kick-ass company. In fact, they'd overtake this guy, because in addition to the 54, they'd also be making their doinky little 18 a share. That's assuming they can get out. Yeah, they have a dot here that they're running from. So a swallow for them might have made sense at that point. And here's the thing: if I had known how close we were, maybe the swallow makes sense anyway. Another $1,000 in the bank stretches it out a little longer. Oh, jeez. Unfortunately, they've already gone, and I wasn't thinking too carefully, because I think maybe on this turn, this is actually what they wanted to do. But that's okay. I think I've seen enough of the game to please myself. If I was playing an opposed game, I'd be pissed as hell with myself for missing that, though, I'll tell you. And the Belgian is convinced we are ending here, and they dropped a token here. It's not going to have much effect on play anymore. But now that the company that they know and love that's running up there is no longer, well, at least they're cutting the Paris Orléans. And I actually don't even have shares of that, so it's all for the good. I was mistaken. The West did not have a lot of money on board. The only person with a decent amount of money is the Alsace. That has like $450. If they did a full swallow, they would have gotten 440. That puts them close. But 3 half swallows, which would have gotten them all the advances I think that they needed, could have pushed it over. But did they want to extend the game? Primarily, I'd say the answer is no, because they don't have a lot of shares of this. If they did, if they were one of the 2 people with a big holding in that, yeah, they would really want to extend the game. And bringing another big company and another big payout in would be fine with them. But as it is, whatever they put on here is probably not going to catch them up to the guys with 3 shares of that. So I think they're best off playing it safe here. It was too close to call. There's $281 here. I've gotten down to the end of the runs. The PO's left. Last time it ran at 46, $460 paying out, minus 46 for this. But here's the thing. It was up to this guy whether or not the bank breaks, I think, because he could buy a big token somewhere, like down here. He has some significant cash in his pot. Well, maybe not enough. Maybe not enough. This also is not a 46 run anymore, because it's been cut by the Belge, which Boy, the Belge would have been upset if he finds out that he extended the game by placing that token. Oh, well, you don't want to be a dick all the time, right? All right, we'll see what the PO does, but I'm assuming it's going to produce more than 28 a share. Well, yeah, more than 28 will work. More than $280 paying out. I can't see how it can do that poorly. The only exception to that would be if there were rules that allowed you to refuse to make the best run you can. That's not generally the case in XX, and I don't remember seeing. I don't remember it stating anything one way or the other in this game, to tell you the truth. But generally, the games state if you. This guy doesn't want to prolong the game, so I'm not going to worry about it. But if you have a better run pointed out to you, you must take it. You don't have to lay your track or anything in a way that'll give you a better run. You must run your trains for the best run possible. Some of them require that only a stockholder can make that demand on you, which may seem reasonable, but in some games you have 100% holding or whatever. So, all right. Well, I'm just trying to prolong our time together by chattering. The PO runs for 39 a share, pumping up. Nothing exciting to happen there. And that is clearly, even minus 39 bucks, enough to break the $281 bank. So, we're done. And I don't have the cash for that. Rather than, try to make little tokens or something like that, I'm just gonna try to remember when I spreadsheeted out to add 39 bucks per share of the PO to everybody's cash on hand. And we'll be back with that spreadsheeting out very shortly. This is our final track. I don't think much about the track usually after I do the calculations. But it is very interesting in this game, the tangled web right around Paris. The way that the different lines each have their own little location in Paris, you can't loop back, so you're not going to create a total mess. And they each have sort of dominance over one area. It reminds me a little bit of some of the more Euro-ish rail games. And not that I think 18XX isn't somewhat... I think of it as a kind of a proto-Euro, but or a proto of the modern, more heavy Euros, and same with Civilization. But some of those have this. You can only you have a little train in each hex or whatever, and the Winsome games are kind of the same way too. And to me, those are even more of a Euro flavor because they're shorter and simpler and take a lot less overall effort than an 18XX game generally will, even though they might have just as important a decision points in them. Okay, enough babbling there. Let's start calculating. I'll be back. This is going to be kind of painful. It always is. So at this point, I'm about ready to calculate the stock values. And this is at 180. I'm going to drop it to 160 if I can find a 160. I'm not sure I can. I don't think there is one. I've got to try to remember that it should be 160 because there's two bonds outstanding, I believe. One, yeah, he's got one, and there's one more down here, and that drops 20 bucks off the share value. And that's something that people can do, is people who aren't invested in it can buy up the bonds with the desire. Everybody has a desire to it, makes money that they don't, without taking up a certificate limit. So if you have cash, you want them. And the more people who have them, it depends on the number of players, obviously. If you're playing a 4-player game, the guy who owns it can make sure not to have any in the last round, and the corporation can buy them all up, and then his stock value stays fine. But in a 6-player game, there might be a number of people who aren't heavily invested in it and would like to see the stock value go down. And this is the case. There's 2 people who are heavy on it, and other people who are much less so. This guy might be kind of torn about it. But this whole side of the table would be interested in buying the bonds. Well, there's still 3 people in that case that I can buy them from, which means I could keep my stock price up. But in this case, even the owner had a bond in it. So, yeah, let's get that 30 extra bucks. Well, that 30 extra bucks only costs him $10 for each of his shares, so he breaks even in that case. No biggie. Actually came out remarkably close, which kind of makes sense because a lot of the shares got spread out pretty heavily. The obvious power of the Belge, and then later the threat of the Nationale, although that got kind of centralized in a couple players' hands, caused things to kind of conglomerate in one place or another. Only one person ended up way behind. Player 5 over here actually won, and is really glad that the bank broke because certainly another run for the another set of runs for the National at whatever the hell, $500 a pop for those guys each time it ran. That would be pretty damn impressive. The main reason that he won looks like share value on his Alsace. That was huge. He only person who beat him out on share value is actually the West player. The hapless little West, yeah, it made a lot of money on share value. And that's pretty normal. You have to make the balance between how much money you're going to make, how good and healthy your company is, and how much you can pump it up. It's okay to have a hosed company if you can get a lot of money off of the share appreciation. And we're not even seeing people able to push it too high. This game I thought would have less effect for share value, and certainly nobody took the option of just trying to pump share value above all else, because of the simple fact that you can't do it without a good run. This guy could have gone all the way to the top, and most of them eventually could get pretty far up there. But something like the West, he was hitting his barrier. He's kind of glad, given the number of shares of West he has, that it ended when it did, I would say. Because while these would be cranking money, this would be stuck here and not making much. In fact, he'd probably be trying to figure out a way to get... he'd be buying these shares up into the corporation if he could, and try to get his own shares out of his hand. If somebody wants the corporation, that's fine. They can have the extra certificate. It's not making much money anymore. It's only making the 18 around. There's things making significantly more than that and making share value, so that are available. The GC is ready to crank, and it's not bad on share value either. Let's see what else we got here. Like I said, we're within a couple hundred points for the top 3 players. The rest not far behind. The only player who's down is the guy. He hosed himself early on with a really bad start and ended up in debt with the company. I mean, just everything went wrong with that company. And he's still not that bad off. He's above halfway mark, which I think is pretty cool. Nobody crashed. Like I said, the game earlier, the game doesn't seem to allow for bankruptcies, really. You really, I think, have to do some screwy stuff to get yourself bankrupted in this. Because you're forced to take those damn loans. Now, if somebody dumps a company with no train and some loans on it, yeah, you're going to go bankrupt. But it's not going to end the game. So nobody has any real desire to hose someone to try to knock them out of the game because they think they're in the lead at that moment. For good or bad. I don't know how I feel about that, to tell you the truth, because I rather like the opportunity to end the game that way as a tactical option or a strategic option, or however you want to look at it. But in terms of other people's investment in the game, in terms of their time, it's kind of a screw if they're playing for the long game. And what I see here is the long game does look really important. You really want to build the track that you need. You want to get the tokens that you need mixed in, because the other games that kind of focus more on the track and tokens that I'm thinking of tend not to worry. The trains don't tend to be as big a deal as they are in this. So this becomes a very, very harsh game with all those with the train rain and the pace that those come out. The pace feels similar to 1830 in the trains, which, you know, is pretty harsh. The one thing that's not there, or that I didn't see as much of, there isn't as much desire to crush companies that I think that you're holding. But I think there are possibilities to do so. I mean, the main reason there's not is you can't knock someone out of the game when you're ahead, you know, and but there's also, at least I had the perception that there are companies that just aren't very potent, and you really don't want to get rid of something that looks like it's going well in exchange for a loser. It's kind of like the bargain, you know, if you're holding, I don't know, the B&O or something in 1830, and you got to decide, hey, you know, do I want to dump this or try to save it? And if I dump this, what's left for me? Oh, look, I could get the Erie, and it's not hooked up, you know, or the C&O, and nobody's gone over there. And wow, that kind of sucks. It helps that I don't know where these railroads actually started, so I can't criticize, you know, oh, look, the C&O starts over in Chicago. What the hell's wrong with that, you know? That always bothered me in 30 for whatever reason. Anyway, I had fun with this one. I'll be back with a review, but I can tell you I like it so far. And I'll try to summarize the why in my rambling sort of way.